Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. First, we're going to talk about Jeremy Sochan signing with the Knicks. Then we're going to go to 2025-26 NBA season takeaways. What have we learned? As we can see the boxes in the background over here, I'm realizing in this shot. So this is a little bit funny. But we're going to talk about what we've learned from the 2025-26 NBA season and what the biggest takeaways are of the year so far. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What a pro move, getting rid of the boxes during the intro video. I'm sure somewhere in my contract and job details, I'm supposed to tell you if there's something off in your camera shot. So I think we can probably blame me for not being like, hey, Sam, can you get your moving boxes the heck out of the camera so people aren't looking at it the entire episode?
It's so funny that, look, ostensibly, like the show, as people know, like it's, my thing and everything. And I love Bryce and I love Andrew, and they do so much for the show. And this is going to be a great example of it, where Bryce texts our group chat like 2 days ago. Andrew likes us to take a photo after each show just so that we can end up, having like a fresh photo to put on the thumbnail and everything after this goes live and everything. And Bryce, I never remember to do this photo. ADHD, brain's going 45 different directions, also moving, no chance. Every time Bryce is like, yeah, we got to do the photo. And then he literally texts the group chat 2 days ago and he's like, yeah, I forgot to bring up the photo. That's on me. There's no way Sam's ever going to remember this. And then like Andrew half the time like has to remind us to do shit.
Andrew called you out and I was like, honestly, Andrew, that's probably my fault. So I will take ownership of this. I was actually thinking about it because I know we both have deadlines on this one. It's like, I just told Andrew I would remind you to do the picture. And I'm like, if this thing runs long and I'm right up against it for my kids' practice, we may strategically not take the photo. And Andrew's going to be real pissed at us. And when I say us, I mean me.
I'm sure, no, he'll definitely be mad at me. Like, I'm sure people notice that, like, I have a very simple wardrobe for these things. I wear like a thermal every single time. The thermals are different colors, but I just wear a thermal every time because that tends to be what I wear in real life, right? And we have like 45 different photos of me wearing like probably this thermal and a blue one and a gray one. You know what I mean? So
it's funny you say that. I think about it because obviously I record in my house. I often just wear like, I have clothes that I wear around the house. I don't know if that's normal for people, but like I come home, go for a walk, take a shower, and then I put on just lounge, walk around the house clothes. And I wear those to record. And I realized that it's like the same 2 or 3 shirts. So I think every thumbnail on the YouTube is some variation of those 2 or 3 shirts because they're the only ones that are my just lounge around the house t-shirts. So it's funny the quirky things you get into once you've done a podcast together for, I don't know, we're over 2 years now.
2.5 years. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So let's just talk about basketball now and get into
and why Andrew is very happy and won't be mad at us either way.
It's very true. Okay, let's talk about basketball and get into it. Jeremy Sochan has signed with the New York Knicks. So my read on this, from kind of having asked around, was that this was kind of set. Like after the Spurs waived him, like I think that there was, I wouldn't say like any sort of like done deal agreement, but I think that there was some planning that went into this to get him to the Knicks. I had been told like that the Knicks had some interest in him pre-deadline. I actually did if you remember this story over at The Athletic, where I said like 4 deals that I would love to see at the deadline. And one of them was basically like Jeremy Sochan for Dadier, the Yabusele contract, before we knew that Yabusele was going to be willing to decline the player option, and a second round pick, basically. So the fact that they're getting Sochan for free and they got off of the Yabusele deal in order to get, was that in the Alvarado deal? It was to like create space for the Alvarado deal, to be able to fit in at the very least. So the fact that they're able to do this, get Sochan and get Alvarado, I think is a massive win for the Knicks. I think they did a pretty immaculate job at this deadline. And to be clear, like when I say like I think this is pretty preordained, like that's the feeling from other teams around the league that I've talked to, not necessarily from what either of those organizations think. I will say, Bryce, I really like this for the Knicks. I think it's a great idea for them to go get another bigger body who can give them some versatility and flexibility on defense. Given that Sochan like had a choice here in theory, I'm like a little bit surprised that he's choosing what I think is like a fairly risky situation in terms of playing time for him. In order to try to like rehabilitate his value a little bit heading into free agency next summer. Like I'm not like 100% sure Sochan's going to be a playoff guy for them based off of what we've seen and based off of just like what his offensive value has been so far. But I love it as a depth idea for the Knicks. Like I think it makes total sense for New York. Like you can put him in lineups next to Karl Anthony Towns. You can put him in lineups that really work for him with floor spacers. Like if you put him in a lineup with Alvarado, Deuce McBride, Karl Anthony Towns, him, and like another shooter out there, I think that lineup probably works in all honesty and just allows him to be in the dunker spot, be cutting back door, doing the things that he does so well, while also bringing the defensive versatility that he's so capable of doing. So like I'm pretty intrigued, honestly, in the Sochan idea. Like I think it's worthwhile, but maybe I'll talk a little bit more about like what I think I would have done if I was him. Maybe if I was like trying to maximize my long-term, contract value, maybe.
Yeah, that's the side of it I hadn't thought too much. I think it'll be fun to hash that out a little bit. I think for me, I'm very similar to you in that this makes sense for the Knicks. It's a buyout market addition that fits at least position that we have talked about them needing. And for him, theoretically, and we'll see how practically it can play out, he can play the 4 along with the 5. I don't know if he's big enough to play against the 5, but in certain matchups, he absolutely will be able to. I think ultimately what I thought when this happened was, and I know Alvarado's coming off a major night, I think was it last night, Wednesday night that he had that
26.
Yeah. Is you get better defensively for your bench unit. And there's a little bit of, okay, if Mitchell Robinson isn't available or you need 5 minutes, even in a playoff game, then Sochan can come in and maybe provide that. So for the Knicks, it makes a ton of sense. What I don't know what you're going to do better than this in terms of the need and a player that's a worthwhile chance. And the other thing is, even if he just helps them win regular season games, they are in a fight right now for regular season Eastern Conference standings. Are we going to be the 2 or 3? Can we chase down the Pistons at the 1? The Cavaliers are trying to make their run in the standings. Can you make sure that you're not the 4 or you're not the 3 where you get home court advantage against the Celtics or the Cavs in a potential semifinals? So even if it only ends up being that, that's okay, Sam. If he takes miles off Mitchell Robinson for the regular season and allows them to continue to win games, that is worthwhile from the Knicks side. The Sochan side is interesting in terms of, okay, you have this risk reward of the risk is I don't play that much, especially in the playoffs. To me, the reward is I can play minutes for a team that might make a playoff run. And maybe that means more to teams than if I go play for the Utah Jazz and nobody cares about my 30 games post All-Star break because it's for a team that's not trying to win. I don't know what the answer is, and I think there's a real risk-reward part of the equation, but I wonder if that's what the thought was. Hey, I think I can go earn minutes here, and teams in the offseason will value what I do for a team in the playoffs over 25 or 30 minutes for this team that's tanking down the stretch.
That's interesting. Honestly, I think that's an interesting sell point. It's just that I don't know if the Knicks are the team where he is like definitely going to play.
So that's the other
Like,
thing. Is there another team that maybe is a first round exit that is a better fit where you're not guaranteeing, but you're more likely to get minutes? I haven't scoured the standings to pick out that team yet, but
like to me, the immediate one that stood out to me was the 76ers, because like the 76ers need a like bigger body in this mold. They have enough shooting, especially with how Joel is playing like extremely perimeter oriented basketball this season. That was one where it was just like immediately, this kind of tracks for me a little bit as a potential fit at the very least. Anywhere else, like Boston kind of has minutes for these guys sometimes, whether or not they'd have been willing to do it given their tax situation. I would guess, frankly, no, probably. I mean, what would you have thought on the Pistons?
Okay, so I immediately thought about Detroit. My issue is, I think he would fit in general, right? This is the archetype that I said. My issue is you add another non-shooter to a roster full of non-shooters.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, this would be insurance of, hey, Ron Holland's defense doesn't translate to the playoffs for whatever reason. He's not making shots. He's, not able to get to the rim in the half court. Well, we'll go to Sochan, who maybe would be better defensively, because he's like that would be the only thing for me. It's hard to pencil him in off the bench because them in particular they just don't have enough shooting to add another non-shooter to the rotation.
Well, like in the last team I'll bring up here is, we really like Charlotte. We've really enjoyed what Charlotte has done. I don't know, like Charlotte I know they have Grant Williams back, and, Grant is, bringing what Grant Williams does, except just like not shooting super well right now. Could he have been there? Like, would that have made sense to you?
So that was the
bigger body, crash bang kind of player there.
That was the team I was thinking of as well. Like, is there a role for him? I still just feel like, I think anywhere, I don't know that the minutes are guaranteed anywhere. The more we've talked about it, Can Cleveland even do this? Would they? They're not second apron, are they?
They are still second apron.
Yeah, they are. But he didn't make enough for it to. Is that right?
To matter, I don't believe. Yeah. Well, no, they might not even be able to sign buyout guys above the minimum now that I think about it. But
I couldn't remember.
Regardless,
what the second apron.
This is a good point from Rachel in the comments too. Like, Sochan hurt his back this year, and like I agree with her when she says that. I think that he's lost like a little bit of athleticism. That's not to say he can't get it back. You know what I mean? Because I think that is a real distinct possibility. But I didn't think he was moving as well this season as what we had thought coming into like last season and the year before, when he'd been like, starting and playing a lot of minutes, but a double figure scorer because he can cut and get out in transition, as well as play really high level defense. Like, I've seen people like question, can he be a 5 in the comments since we've been talking as well. He's not really a 5 is what I would say.
I
like
agree.
He's a lot better at guarding like down the lineup with his mobility and like switchability than I've always thought he is guarding up the lineup with like physicality and things like that. And, crashing the glass as hard as you need to play the 5. So I like him a lot more as like a 3-4 depth option in case one of OG Anunoby, who has some injury issues in the past, as well as Josh Hart, can potentially, provide some cover for them in case the Knicks end up having some injury issues. So I don't mind the idea here. So, and I really like the idea of Sochan's upside entering the NBA, but it's like a real, he's got some work to do to become like a real NBA player, in my opinion. There's upside defensively if it works, because we've seen him guard at a really high level previously in the NBA, but the offense is like a real worry to me. So that's all. The other thing that I just wanted to bring up on Sochan was I was wondering if a team would, like the Kings, right? The Kings have been in the market for these 3-4s. They just went out and got DeAndre Hunter. Like, could the Kings have tried to do like a 1+1 or something? But They actually weirdly are very close to the tax. Could Dallas have tried to do a 1+1 using their biannual or something like that? Would have been interesting to me, but they have a lot of non-shooters as it is. So he's a hard player to fit. I like the Knicks fit in theory, but we'll see what it looks like here moving forward. The other thing that's newsy that I want to talk about will lead into our takeaways segment, and I'll start with one of mine. But before we do that, we do want to shout out the folks over at Fabletics. New workout gear is just the best. When you're working out in something that's comfortable, but that also makes you look great, you feel completely unstoppable at the gym. It's going to make you work that much harder, and it's going to help you see the gains that you want. But the problem is that buying new gear all the time just isn't realistic. I have the answer to that issue. When I joined Fabletics as a VIP, it all changed. Suddenly, getting a fresh outfit to work out in felt like it was totally doable a lot more regularly. When I signed up as a VIP with Fabletics, I got 80% off of everything. I thought it was going to be one of those too good to be true things, but this is real. The quality honestly surprised me. Fabletics pieces feel like the kind of high-end activewear you'd easily pay a couple $100s for, but you also get the same premium fit and durability for a tiny fraction of the price. At that point, the VIP membership basically pays for itself. In the fit, it's dialed in. You have no waistbands creeping down, joggers that actually keep their shape, jackets that are warm without being bulky. Everything feels soft, breathable, flexible, and built for whatever your day looks like. Workouts, travel days, getting back to your routine, those New Year fresh start mornings when you need something that helps you feel put together. The woven shorts and training t-shirts are on point, and the go-to oversized hoodie is perfect for running in those winter months when you need to get outside. Those are definitely my favorites over at Fabletics. Fabletics already has incredible deals, and I've got an exclusive offer just for my listeners. Get 80% off everything when you sign up as a VIP. Just head to fabletics.com/game theory, take a quick style quiz, and be sure to select game theory when prompted to unlock your 80% off. That's fabletics.com/game theory. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about, and it will lead into this next, the takeaway segment. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to miss the rest of the season. He has what is referred to as a PVNS growth that was discovered post-trade. I mean, I've done like cursory Googling on this. I am not a doctor. My read on it is like these are growths that can occur and like can expand rather quickly. And from what I understand, like they're not like, cancerous. They're not anything like that, serious in terms of, his long-term health, but there are things that can like really impede your flexibility, your mobility if they aren't taken care of. So to me, like this seems somewhat scary and it seems somewhat reasonable. Obviously, when people saw this news, they freaked out talking about tanking or whatever with the Utah Jazz, who haven't been playing Jaren and Lowry in the fourth quarters recently. I don't know. I think this is pretty reasonable. Like, take care of this now. This dude is signed to a long-term deal after you just acquired him. You really need him to be healthy, or else your organization is really screwed long-term. I saw this and I had no problem with how they're handling this.
Yeah, this is the part of it that I just think comes along with not being good or being in a taking season, or, I'm sure there's other examples where a team went into the year, thought that they were going to try to be good and compete and either just weren't good or maybe somebody else got hurt. Being cautious with your players makes sense. And I don't, again, based off everything I've read, heard, seen people talk about in terms of what this is, it seems very reasonable to say, like, why am I going to play through this, potentially have it be worse or whatever, as opposed to just taking care of it now? So this is a part of this situation I have no issue with whatsoever in terms of being overly cautious. I don't even know. Like, if he was on a team that was competing for a title, maybe he would try to play through it to see if it would get worse. I have no idea. But in the situation he's in, it makes complete sense to me that he takes care of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, like like just imagine having like a growth, like getting bigger in your body. You know what I mean? Like that's not good. Like, yeah, like you can't make this stuff up. The NBA like would investigate this as well. You know what I mean? I have no problem with how Utah is handling this. I also think in general, and we talked about this a bit on Sunday and Monday, that people probably should chill out a little bit on like only talking about Utah when it comes to tanking. Yes, I think that they certainly are doing what they can to keep their draft pick in a reasonable way. But like look at Washington and like the guys that they're not playing right now. Look at some of these other teams league wide that are down near the bottom of the standings and how many guys they're holding out. Like, I don't love accusing teams of, you know, whatever. Like the Pacers are holding out Zubats and, you know, basically just Zubats right now, to be clear. But it's like Furphy tore his ACL. That's completely unfair to say. But like they're also like really playing it slow with some guys right now. The Jazz are not the only team in the league that are really trying to slow play things as much as they can. Memphis, it feels like, is, you know, slow playing Morant, right? There are teams everywhere that are doing this, and we need to really just kind of understand that this is realistic.
Yeah, I mean, Porter Jr., when was the last time Michael Porter Jr. played? Or he's missed a few, right? Some games here and there.
I know he's missed a few. I don't have an exact date on when he's like, I know that he missed Wednesday's game against the Pacers, and I think he missed one before that as well. But
okay,
regardless, like,
not as much.
Yeah,
as
like
I thought. He's missed 4 of the last 7 is all.
Yeah, like my point here is just it's everyone is doing this. Like there are 10 teams league wide that realistically like could be considered tanking or playing players to develop them or whatever. Let's chill out on the Utah stuff. I think that's they're not alone here. Honestly, like, would you rather the Jazz not play their 3 best players for 3 quarters and then sit them for the 4th, or would you rather like Washington just like not play guys? Right. And I get it that the Utah guys are bigger names, so it looks a little bit bigger, but at the end of the day, like they're getting more value from their guys than like Washington is from their guys. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm just kind of I'm annoyed by this. The other fun thing, so Shams just reported before we get into the tanking conversation, which is going to be my first takeaway. Shams just reported some expansion stuff where basically the league, the board of governors is going to vote, or at least it's going to be critical for stakeholders to better understand tanking. It feels like we're heading toward expansion at the very least. And this isn't new or anything. To me, like, so he says that it seems like it's going to be Seattle and Vegas. Like they're the 2 most likely, Seattle having lost the team to Oklahoma City, Vegas being a market that the NBA has wanted for a while. B, one team is going to move east to balance this because you have 2 teams coming in the West. I mean, to me, it's just like got to be one of Memphis or Minnesota. Memphis, I believe, is the furthest east team. And on top of it, they're the team to me that like most geographically fits moving to the east. Like they're just closer to teams like Orlando and Charlotte and places like that. I guess you could say Minnesota is fine for like the central division or whatever, but would they then make divisions like the NFL where each division has 4 teams and then they change up the schedule? Who knows, right? But I think we'll probably talk about expansion more as it gets closer. It would mean an expansion draft, which would be very fun, Bryce. We will definitely do an expansion draft pod later in the year. But by and large, I'm excited about expansion because look, at the end of the day, it creates like 30 new NBA jobs. And I think that the league in general desperately needs these 30 jobs. Like there are too many talented players worldwide right now.
No, I agree. I was nervous that the push of NBA Europe or whatever they're calling it seemed to be gaining the most momentum in news and conversation. And I was a little bit nervous that expansion was getting put on kind of the back burner. And so seeing this news today excites me because I think the league can hold it in terms of talent putting out on the court. There are enough talented players to have two more teams. And I think that's a good thing. So I'm all for it. Obviously, the expansion drafts and how that works the year they come into the league with the NBA draft and all of those things are a lot of fun. I think it's just all talking points. It will be a lot of fun. You get two new coaches, you get new front offices, you get, you talk about generating jobs for players. You're also generating jobs for scouts and GMs and all of those things. And even just the idea of reconfiguring the conferences, putting a team in the East. And do we need the divisions? Sam, I don't think I could tell you the divisions right now. If
they're really just like a scheduling function now, to be honest.
Yeah. So it's like, can you just say we have 16 East, 16 West, and we behind the scenes have our geographic pods to help teams in terms of their travel or something? I don't know. Maybe logistically it doesn't make sense, but it's kind of cool. It's cool. It drives some excitement, but most of all, there are enough. I think this year with the two-way players shows that there is enough talent around the NBA to support two more teams. And so I'm excited. And then here's the other thing. I mean, I don't mean this like, I don't care about Las Vegas as much, but it seems like this would be really cool for Seattle, right? Like you lose that team. And I mean, I've never been there, but just Seattle gets a team back. And yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to these takeaways now because we're 25 minutes in and we're going to have to shoot through these. The first takeaway for me is the NBA is going to have to do something about the tank race is the reality. Look, I've written about this at The Athletic and have talked about it, pretty substantially at this point. I'm going to be honest, like I don't have great answers in terms of what the league should do on the tank race idea. But it is pretty clear that with the NBA getting more into gambling and into that space, that this stuff really matters to gamblers. Undeniably, having the information is incredibly important. On top of that, it's just more widespread than we've ever seen. And part of this is cyclical. Like, I want to be very clear with people. We're going to talk about the 2026 NBA draft at some point today. A huge reason why this tank race is so widespread is that the 2026 draft is loaded. Next year, teams are not going to be clamoring to try to get to the top in the way that they are now. Like, all due respect to Jordan Smith, Tyron Stokes, guys like that. Like, I don't think any of those guys go in the top 6 of this class right now, based off of what we've seen. So there is a lot to kind of parse through, a lot to go through here. I think a big part of this is cyclical in nature. Also, we have some weird stuff happening injury-wise. Not even, like with teams holding out guys, but Tyrese Halliburton injuring his Achilles in the playoffs last year, forcing the Pacers basically in a tank this year, kind of added a team to this race that was a little bit surprising, right? We all knew that teams like Brooklyn and Washington and probably Utah were going to be in this race at the end of the day. But the Giannis injury threw the Bucks into this race potentially as well. The Bulls finally deciding to tank intelligently probably throws them into this race as well. I just think that there are factors here that make this year more egregious than normal, but the NBA is still going to have to do something about this. And I'll talk about like what I think is the best idea that I've heard, at least. But I will say that I've heard like the wheel idea, right? I know Kevin O'Connor wrote about that this week. I know some other people have written about it. I am not in favor of that. Like, I don't think that works, because to me, we're trying to like even it out for small markets on some level, right? Like, we're trying to make it so that small markets at least have a chance to compete. And there just isn't really a way for those teams. Like, if they make mistakes, and you have to account for like the fact that there are going to be situations where small market teams make mistakes, or if they go through a cycle of 10 years where they have Giannis, like Milwaukee, right? And they've drafted first or second overall within that time of Giannis, and they've gotten their draft picks in that group, that team might be like dead for 20 years. And there's just like no way that they can recover. And that is not what the NBA wants from like a parity perspective, and to keep like the markets alive, really. So I don't really get the wheel idea. I don't think that totally works for what the NBA is doing. I'll talk about some of the strategies maybe, but like, where are you at on the tanking idea as a whole?
So first I want to talk about what you mentioned, where part of this is teams, yes, teams that meant to be bad, but Sacramento isn't purposely awful. We knew they weren't going to be good, but they weren't tanking, right? Coming into the year. Dallas didn't come in the year planning to tank. Even the Pacers is worse because of the injuries they had at the start of the year. So there are other teams that have joined this that it wasn't going to be when things set out. Second, one thing I've learned over the last couple weeks thinking about this, because quite frankly, Sam, personally, selfishly, I just don't care. But what I realized is I get something out of watching Utah play, Indiana play, Washington play, because I've scouted those players as NBA draft prospects. And so I heard it said very well the other day, when Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. don't play, I don't care, because that means I get to really watch Cody Williams or somebody else, right? On the Utah Jazz. Same thing with the Wizards. Their guys don't play. Well, now I get to watch Jameer Watkins play. And for me, I'm cool with that, because I've watched Jameer Watkins come up through college and I'm interested to see what it looks like. I got to remember that there's a Wizards fan out there who may not feel the same way, or a Jazz fan out there who may not feel the same way. And so I do realize that it matters. I've yet to hear an idea that I didn't immediately go, yeah, but now they're just going to tank to start the year. Or now you're going to give the Thunder, like, is what's happening now better? Or this be the year that the will gives the Thunder the number one pick and they get their choice of one of these guys, you know? So I don't know, Sam. I struggle with this, and I've yet to hear an idea that I just am like, yeah, I like that. Let's roll with that one.
Yeah, I'm struggling with it too, to be honest, in terms of finding the idea. Like, the best idea that I have heard so far, well, I've heard a couple. So like, one idea was, okay, basically same system as now, but the team with the worst record isn't eligible for the number one pick, right? Like, that was one that I heard where it was like, okay, that's like somewhat interesting. But even still, like, I think teams will risk it and continue to lose games just to get into like that bottom 3, 4, or 5. I've heard some like point systems as well, where it's like, you know, try to like figure out, okay, you lose up to a certain point, and then come February, every point that, or every game that you win, you like accumulate points that adds to your lottery balls, like something like that. You know what I mean?
So this is the one that's always been the most interesting to me. But then my question was, okay, so if nothing matters up until that point, because some of the ideas I hear, I'm like, no, teams are now going to reverse. They're going to tank to start the year. And I think that's almost worse. I think it's almost worse to have 10 teams not trying to win to begin the season than it is for the next couple months. I realize people don't like the idea of how many of these teams aren't going to try to win post All-Star break, but the playoff races and the awards races are at least good enough to distract you from caring about that. At the beginning of the year, I want all 30 teams trying to win. But if you don't do if nothing matters for the lottery until February, what's it going to be? The February 20th?
No. We're not saying that nothing matters. We're saying that the last, like your record, you accumulate points for losses or whatever up until a certain date. And then, like with the last 15 games or whatever, you start to accumulate for winning games.
So this is my point, though. So as a GM, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a crap roster in the offseason and lose as many games as possible up until the trade deadline. And then I'm going to make a move at the deadline. So my team is going to be unwatchable for the first 50 games of the year. That's what I'm saying. Like,
this is my thing. So if you do it for like a small enough sample where it's like 15 games or like 12 games or whatever, the final 12 games, I don't know that teams would tank at the start of the year. I think they might tank in the middle of the year, like pretty aggressively.
But you're still giving them points for losses up until that point, Sam. You're still giving them. Why do we have to count anything before it? Why do we have to?
What if it's that you accumulate points for losses and then like the end of the season here, these final 15 games, if you win a game, you accumulate like 2x points for winning games.
How about you just don't get your butt kicked? How about for every game you don't lose by more than 10, you get an extra point? Because ultimately that's what this is. We
want to keep games more competitive.
That is right. We always call it a tanking problem. I don't know that that's truly what it is. It's we want competitive basketball problem. And is it about the names a little bit? Sure. I understand. Like I have a nephew that went to a Nuggets game because he wanted to see Steph Curry. Steph Curry wasn't there. And Steph Curry was legitimately sick and all that. So I understand the idea of people get one chance to watch teams or players and they want to see the players. I understand that's part of it as well. But ultimately, I think big picture is the NBA wants competitive games. They don't want the Nets getting blown out by 50. So if you get blown out by 50, you lose points in this system. If you only lose by 5, then you gain a couple points or something, right? Like, I don't know, but I worry. My worry is there's always going to be some other thing. Because here's my thing with the current lottery odds, Sam.
Yes, this is right. When people think about this, they think about the solutions and they don't think about what the kick-on effects will be after they come up with like the solutions. Like what are the side effects to what you're fixing?
And so these current lottery odds, I wonder, I'm so excited to hear whether you think this is legitimate at all or not. I think it actually encourages the tank race group to expand compared to the old way of doing it. I think more teams can talk themselves into tank. This is our issue because the odds don't favor the team with the worst record. That team is.
This is an amazing take.
That team doesn't win the lottery. I watched it with the team right there. But what it does is it says, hey, you don't got to be down there. Even if you have the 8th worst record, you have a chance. So I'm going to go lose games. So I think it's actually expanded the pool of teams that tank, where the old way, if you're whoever in 8th place, I'm not catching the Wizards. I'm not catching the Jazz. I'm not catching those 3 or 4 teams that are going to out-tank me. I might as well go win games.
So what I'm wondering is, I agree with you. And I think that not only to your point, does the way that the lottery odds are now, like at 14% or whatever, not only does it increase the pool of teams, it actually has worked to extend the length of time that some of these organizations are tanking for.
That's the other part. I think people can handle a couple year tanks. What they can't handle is 3 or 4 or 5 years. I will also say the pool is expanded this year. This is like a perfect storm because the draft is so good as well. Like I want to be fair also that this draft is good and you can get some pretty exciting players down to 6. That has also contributed to the pool being bigger, but I do think the odds help it.
What if we did it this way where it's just like we do the lottery for the number 1 overall pick and that's it? Like instead of doing it for the top 4, we do it for the number 1 pick. Cause I think it would reduce the number of teams tanking. Like if they can't get there, I guess they might be doing it for lottery balls at the end of the day, and they're probably doing it for order at that point. So that doesn't even totally work necessarily. But I'm like trying to think of, so like the NHL like doesn't really tank. You know, like some teams will like get a little bit rough near the end of the year, but it's not as bad. And like the NHL system is not like terrible, in my opinion, for this. Like they do, I think, the top 2, if memory serves. And it's like a team can only move up like 10 spots in the order or something. They have like a lot flatter of a trajectory of like a lottery system. And then also they have it to where it's only for 2. And like teams just don't really tank there. So but again,
that's interesting.
Like the real issue here that we're all trying to solve, right, is actually unfixable, in my opinion. The real issue with tanking is that basketball is such an individualized sport that getting one superstar level player that can impact the game at such a wide level and such a strong level, such as Cade Cunningham for the Detroit Pistons, is just always worth tanking for. That's the reality, right? That player completely changes the trajectory of your organization, point blank. And like, I don't think that changes at the end of the day. Like, I don't know that anything we do with tanking fixes it. Now, the other idea that I've heard that I think is somewhat interesting that the players will never agree to. Like there is, I think, maybe they would, I don't know. But I think there's a very low chance the players would agree to this. You set aside 10% of their salaries in escrow. And the teams that win end up getting like more of the money, basically. Like you accumulate a certain number for each win is the idea. So basically like the players always play hard, but that's not going to change. Maybe both sides would have to do it. Maybe like 10% of, you know, the players pool, which is 51%, and 10% of the owner's pool also gets accumulated for wins, right? Money wise. So then the owners have 4.9% of the overall BRI pie up for grabs for winning games, which is a crazy amount of money. And then the players have 5.1% of the money up for grabs in the BRI pile. And I think the players would play hard. I think owners would probably be less inclined to undertake these like long tanking strings at the end of the day. I don't mind that idea. And I think that if you did it for both sides, like the players and the owners, I wonder if they would be a little bit more inclined to hear that out.
So here's my issue with that is I don't think taking is a player-led issue. So I don't like the idea of holding players' money over what isn't a play. This isn't this isn't a player problem. This isn't a player problem in this instance.
I completely agree with you, but if you do it for the players as well, like there's no way that the Jazz are going to be able, like there's no way Lowry is letting the Jazz sit him down.
Correct.
If there's that much money on the table, like Lowry's just going to go, yeah, I'm not doing this. Sorry, guys.
No, I understand the motivation. I don't love putting it on the players in that way. I understand the idea.
But to me though, like I understand not putting it on the players, but like, I don't know, if you're the players, you're probably like, this is competitive basketball. at the end of the day. Like, we're rolling, we're playing for money every single day.
And
like nobody's like the overall player pool is not losing money by doing
here's my
this.
thing. That's a good point. What I like about this is, as opposed to having potentially, I'm sure there are some, side effects, is I actually think it could solve the other problem that people have, which is the load management, players not playing, players not being competitive enough.
Also a good point.
This is why this would be my positive of, hey, owners, front offices, put your money where your mouth is and go win games because of tanking. Players, you're going to put your money here and you're going to go be competitive night in, night out. Oh, now that's easy for me to say. I sit in my little kid's bedroom and talk basketball. We're not trying to take my mom, my teacher paycheck and make me go earn it in some other way. But if whatever the mechanism is, I want to understand the dollar. Where do the dollars come from? Are we literally taking 10% of Lowry's salary?
Yes. We put 10% of every player's salary in escrow. They count the same against the salary cap, let's call it, no matter what. And you say, hey, for every win, based on the amount of money that's in the pool salary-wise,
you get whatever percent. How many ever wins are up for grabs?
There's what, like 1,022 wins or whatever up for grabs, or 1,200 wins every season up for grabs. You get a percentage. You get a certain number. Every player gets a certain number per win.
Well,
it can be like 7% of salaries. Like, I don't know what the number is, but I said 10 because I thought 10 would be like reasonable enough, because with Lowry, he's dropping from 49 point,
but a win would
44 million, right? Like
a win for Lowry would have to count for more than a win for Ace Bailey, for example, though. You took more of Lowry's money than Cody's money. So Lowry should get more money for a win, should he not?
Sure, I'm good with that. Yeah.
I guess it's the same percentage. Maybe that doesn't work.
Do it based off of percentage of the amount of money that the player has put into the pool.
Right? Isn't that more fair? Am I off?
Sure.
I'm not always good with math. I have
no problem with that.
I think I'm making sense here.
And so like each player, by the time they get to 41 wins or whatever,
they get their money back.
They get their money back.
And then anything over 41, you make more.
Right.
You're taking somebody else's money.
Yeah.
It's theoretically.
I think this is a great idea.
I think it's fun. I mean, listen, we talk about players. If you offer them money, hence the in-season tournament, you may find some competitive juices out of that. Can you imagine the trash talk? That would be amazing. And then so you make the owners do the same thing, right?
Rachel brings up a point here. Like, Shea might be up to almost $1 million per game once he signs his extension. So like every game, Shea's playing for like $100,000.
Yeah, we have to do a percentage. Yeah. So, but then your idea was also make owners put in a certain amount, and then theirs gets divvied up as well somehow.
Right. 100%. It gets divvied up per win.
You put
10% of the fools. You put 10% of the money aside, right? You put 10% of the money aside every year. And it's 4.9 for the owners, 5.1 for the players. And the wins, or the money, is divvied up based on salary and based on wins.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a wrench in real fast. What's the injury clause?
None. I understand what you're saying here, but like, honestly, just like tough luck, and I feel bad because, to your point, the idea of making sure that guys play is like, that's your player participation policy, is you have 10% of the salaries up for grabs now, and you're trying to win.
I love it and hate it all at the same time. And you're right. There's no chance the players are signing off on this, although I think it would be awesome. And I would feel bad for every person who had a legitimate injury. That would suck. Oh, man. This is fun. I did not anticipate you throwing this. I had not seen this one.
This is a good idea to me. I think that this would genuinely solve a lot, to be honest with you. Like, if guys are playing for 10% of their salary every night, that's real dollars.
Yeah. No,
it would get guys to play.
And they would play hard.
They would play hard. And if you do it on the owner side too, we're not just putting it on the players, put it on the owner side for their 10% too. Every win, each owner gets 10%. Like I'm all for giving more money to Detroit this year because they are winning basketball games.
Sure. You know what's funny is that I'm not trying to like throw shade at Bobby Klintman, but Bobby Klintman just gets to sit there and make money having never played a meaningful game for the Detroit Pistons this year. I love it. And I think there's zero chance that the players would do it, but I think it could solve some things.
See, like to me, this solves it way easier than trying to like put limits on pick protections and trying to put limits on anything else, right? Like that's what it is to me. Like you're not making them play for like crazy money, right?
Yeah, because I say Bobby Klintman's, those guys are making $2.5 million. So they're quote unquote only putting in 250,000. He's still making over $2 million. It's not like these guys are going to be broke, even the ones that are lower, but it's enough that it's substantial. Like it's going to, that matters to you.
I think it's pretty good.
Cool.
I think it legit solves what we're going through right now because owners might tank for a year or two, but like if you say that, man, I'm losing, what would that be? God knows how much that would be of what they're losing every single night in basketball related income. They're not going to let the front office tank. I can guarantee you.
Not for more than, like you said,
a year or two.
More than a couple years. That's right. This one is interesting, and I'm excited to hear people's fallouts from it because we always like to be fair on the other side. This one is interesting to me because I think you could get two things, quote unquote, solved, right?
And people want to complain about how hard the players don't play hard in the NBA, whatever.
They will now.
I think that's like incorrect, but B, guarantee they go now. You're not taking money from the full pool of players.
Individual players lose money. Correct.
Correct.
The pools would be different, right?
Pool.
The owners pool would be over here and the players pool would be over here, right? Like
Correct.
The owner.
Yes.
Yeah. And so essentially the players are fighting for their money and the owners are having their players fight for that. The owner trash talk would be hilarious. This would be amazing. Ishbia would be all over Twitter telling whoever that he took his money this year when the Suns go over 41 wins.
This is a good idea. Like, I think it solves a lot.
I love it. I'm about it. I mean, I wouldn't be as a player. I'd be freaking terrified because I wasn't mentally strong enough, but these guys are, so it'd be a blast.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to let's hit both of our remaining sponsors here, and then we'll get into our last takeaways. Shout out to Omaha Steaks. There's nothing better than a good smash burger. It's the perfect food to me, where you grill the edges, get them all crispy, but then you have that terrific beef flavor in the middle. It's exactly what I want from a burger. And now I have an answer on how you can grill up the best smash burgers at your own home. Omaha Steaks sells any type of burger that you're looking for, from pure ground beef brisket burgers to Wagyu to my favorite smash burgers. You can just ground beef if you want to get ground beef, if you want to make your own burgers. The food with Omaha Steaks, the meat is always excellent. You can rely on Omaha Steaks to deliver exactly what you're looking for from a burger and to do so at an excellent price. They also don't just do beef. Omaha Steaks offers an exclusive lineup of USDA certified tender steaks, gourmet burgers, versatile chicken, pork, seafood, and more. It's all delivered right to your door. Celebrate President's Day with the exceptional handcrafted flavor and convenience of Omaha Steaks. Get 50% off the world's best everyday protein. Go to omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their President's Day sale. And for an extra $35 off, use the promo code Game Theory at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. and an extra $35 off with promo code Game Theory at check out. Okay, shout out to our folks over at Mando as well. Mando has been a long-term sponsor of the Game Theory podcast, and we do indeed love them here. Their whole body deodorant is absolutely terrific, and it's a key part of my travel routine because let's face it, you need the space when you're packing, and you absolutely need that deodorant because you know you're going to sweat when you're out at close basketball games. Mando's got me covered with a powerful 72-hour odor control. It's safe to use all over. Yes, that means from your pits to your feet and every spot in between. It comes in 3 formats: invisible spray, solid stick, and cream. So there's something for everyone. And here's the play. New customers are going to get, hold on here. Lost my call to action for a second here. Going to get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code Game Theory. That's GAMETHEORY. Use the code at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide and free shipping. SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show. Tell them that we sent you. Mando has got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness. Lost some copy there for a second and had to figure it out on the fly. Bryce, you go with your first takeaway.
So my first takeaway is something I've talked about a little bit throughout the first 50 games of the season, which is I think we have no clear-cut favorite in the East, and the West is not inevitable, which is going to make for a very fascinating NBA playoffs on both sides of the conference. I realize the Oklahoma City Thunder are still really, really good and rightfully deserve to be the favorites in the Western Conference. But the talks of breaking the regular season wins record are long gone. They're dealing with some injuries. We'll see where they're at by the time the playoffs come around. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying they're not the favorites. They would be for me. But between the Spurs, the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, the whatever you think about the Rockets and I don't think it's inevitable in the Western Conference. And while I thoroughly believe the Detroit Pistons have been the best team in the Eastern Conference this year and the second best team in the NBA, I, even as somebody who covers that team, don't think that they are just 100% the favorites to come out of the Eastern Conference with the likes of the Boston Celtics and a potential Jason Tatum return, the New York Knicks, and even the, as I mentioned earlier, Cleveland Cavaliers, who made the move at the deadline and are making their way up the standings. So my whole point here is I'm excited for the NBA playoffs on both sides.
I am really excited for the playoffs on both sides. I think we saw last year, like to the point that the West is not inevitable, right? Like I think we saw last year that the West playoffs are just a bear to get through. Like Oklahoma City, I thought looked a little bit worn down by the time they got to Indiana because of the gauntlet they had to go through. And that's not to say Indiana wasn't worn down as well. The East playoffs are a gauntlet as well, right? But man, Oklahoma City, it was just physical. It was so physical last year. And, I think that is real wear and tear. And if it's Oklahoma City, like there's a reason it's really hard to go back to back. It's because of the wear and tear that 2 straight seasons of this puts on your body. You are playing 100+ games every year, trying to contend, trying to get through injuries. It's difficult, Bryce. Like it is freaking hard to do this. So I don't know, man. Like I think it is. I think Oklahoma City is the clear favorite for what it's worth. Like I think they are the favorite to win the title. But I remember thinking that, remember when the year after Denver won the title? Like I remember thinking that they were absolutely the clear favorite. And then by the second round of the playoffs, I thought that team looked like dead on its feet with its legs. Like I thought they just lost their legs at that point. It is a real war of attrition in the NBA. And you just never know if a team is going to kind of lose their legs at the end of the day, especially a team going for a back-to-back title. So I agree with you that this is not inevitable. I do think that Oklahoma City, though, is like, to me, the clear favorite to win. And then like there are probably 4 or 5 teams after them that I think are like really in the ballpark.
Yeah, I remember a couple months ago whenever they were really rolling and Jalen Williams hadn't even played yet. And I was thinking, this is going to be boring. As exciting as this is going to be bad, right? Like, this is bad for the NBA overall if the Thunder are this dominant throughout the whole season, where everybody's going, the East sucks and the Thunder are way better than everybody else in the West. And listen, their net rating is still 3.7 better than the Detroit Pistons, but like the defensive rating isn't so much higher than Detroit anymore. Like, they've closed that gap a little bit. Even other teams have closed that gap a little bit. They're fourth in offensive rating. Again, I don't know where Jalen Williams is going to end up injury-wise. I'll talk more about this later, but Shea's missed some games now. It's just, again, we'll say it one more time to be clear. They're my favorite in the West. I do think there is a clear-cut favorite in the West, but the inevitability of their run and a potential back-to-back championship doesn't seem as strong as it did at one point this year.
It is not as inevitable as what I thought it was. I thought there was like a real, this might be inevitable at a certain point. Once J-Dub gets back, I thought they were going to like really have a chance to go after the wins record, and that's already dead. You know, they had that like mid-season struggle after the after the in-season tournament, where they, you know, for whatever reason, like really just dealt with a number of different San Antonio related factors, I guess. And then right after that, they got like blown out by Charlotte. Do you remember that game where like they just, for whatever reason, like were essentially fully healthy? I think they just like didn't have Hartenstein in that game, and like Charlotte just like blew the doors off of them in that place. But look, like they've been slightly more hit or miss. You know, again, they, you know, lost to San Antonio like a week ago, and I do think San Antonio has like a really good matchup. And of course, like in that game, you know, let's be very clear about that. Like everybody was out for Oklahoma City in that game. Like I think Shea, Chet, and J-Dub were all out in that game, plus like maybe Hartenstein too. So I think that it is not inevitable. I think that San Antonio has like a very real specific matchup based problem that they can cause for Oklahoma City, because they are such a mid-range heavy team that is also relying on getting to the rim, and Wemby can shut down that rim area in a real way that makes it difficult for them. And then it's kind of a shot variance mid-range game at that point for Oklahoma City. But
yeah,
I do think Oklahoma City is like the team. And then in the East, like you brought up the East, I mean, this thing is just so wide open. I mean, if Tatum comes back, which like, I don't know that that's going to happen. I have no idea what to think of that yet. The signals are so mixed on it that it's really hard for me to even judge. Yeah. Like I think that you could tell me that any of Detroit, Boston, New York, I mean, I would throw out Philadelphia if they're like fully healthy and rolling, because that stretch was really fun, but it's just hard to believe in them being fully healthy and rolling. Like they at least have like a puncher's chance if that is the case, but it's like a very minute, small chance. It does feel like it's probably going to be Detroit or New York, but I don't know who it is of those two.
Well, and here's what I would say to defend the East a little bit. You look at net rating of the top 8 teams in the NBA in net rating. Sam, many do you think are from the Eastern Conference? Top 8. How many teams from the Eastern Conference?
Top 8, I would guess 3 or 4 of the top 8, if only because I know that the Celtics and Knicks have a very good net rating.
4. Cleveland has climbed all the way to 8. If you want to go top 10 in the NBA, it is now 5 as the Miami Heat join the party. You want to go top 11? The East actually has more teams than the West, as the Hornets are 11th in net rating. Here's the more fun one. How many Eastern Conference teams are in the top 4 in the NBA in net rating?
I would guess that all three of the
All
Celtics, Knicks,
three.
and Pistons are. Yeah.
And listen, net rating isn't the end all be all. That's not my point here. My point continues to be, going back a couple months now, I think the Eastern Conference playoffs are going to be awesome. I think there's some really fun matchups. There's some, listen, it doesn't have the star power. I get it. I understand it. But this is where the star power becomes star power. This is where Cade Cunningham gets the chance to be that name. Or, I mean, you still have Jalen Brunson. You still have Donovan Mitchell. Maybe it's Jaylen Brown if Jason Tatum doesn't come back still. So I think the Eastern Conference playoffs are going to be awesome. And I have no idea. If you made me bet a substantial amount of money today on who's going to win it, I would have a really hard time making that decision.
I think if you tell me that Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren, and if you told me that the Pistons are fully healthy, man, the Knicks are playing super well right now too. Man, it's one of the Knicks or the Pistons for me. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's one of the two.
That would be so much fun as an Eastern Conference Finals. And that's no shade at Boston or Cleveland or anybody else. I just think Knicks, Pistons, I mean, those fan bases already hate each other after last year and how things have gone this year. I tweeted this out I don't tweet much anymore, but Sam, I've never seen a team go from a team that nobody cares about 2 years ago to the team that every other fan base hates as quickly as the Detroit Pistons have. The rest of the fan bases hate Detroit. They hate them.
We have not talked about the fight yet with Musa Diabate and Jalen Duren, and this will lead into one of mine here coming up too. I mean, I love it. Like, I'm for it. I have no problem with it. Look, like, if you're going to fight, you have to get suspended, and that's the reality. I did not love Miles Bridges' move, just like coming up to Jalen Duren out of nowhere and trying to fight him, but got no problem with Beef Stew trying to go to his teammate and, leaving the bench. You do that, you suffer the consequences. That's the reality. But I have no problem with him doing it. If he thinks it's worth 7 games to do that, then, or if he thinks it's worth it ended up being 7.
Hey,
but
when you have B-ball Paul, all things are good, Sam Vecenie. Whenever you have B-ball Paul, it's all okay.
Yeah. He's probably the best third center in the league, to be honest. So
I think
that showed it.
He showed it last night against Toronto. I will just say this real quick. I didn't love the way some people portrayed, and it's usually Isaiah Stewart. That's my only thing with Stewart. And I'm not even talking about like the story I told about him off the court the other day. And I want to be clear. We talked about
there are 30 teams in the league that would love to have Isaiah Stewart on their team.
And a whole bunch of teammates who would love to have a teammate that would protect them the way Stewart does. We were very specific talking about Isaiah Stewart is a very competitive person on the court. And I'm not even saying that at times Isaiah Stewart needs to be able to control that a little bit better. I was purely talking about away from the court. The other thing that I hate is I don't like when he gets labeled certain things, and especially don't like whenever he gets said as like he's not a good basketball player. That's the only thing I hate about this stuff with Isaiah Stewart is now he's labeled as like just an enforcer or a fighter or something. Like, this dude is a legitimate NBA basketball player that defends at a very high level and also has grown on the offensive end. So I don't get too worked up about some of this stuff, but miss me with the Isaiah Stewart isn't a good basketball player, because he is.
Yeah. Look, like, he goes over the line sometimes. It's the reality.
I agree with this. I don't disagree here.
But he's a stud defender. He's a great teammate. He rebounds the hell out of the ball. He is super tough. He is versatile defensively in terms of who he can guard. And again, like, my take on the Detroit New York series last year was like, I think they win that series with Stewart. Now we'll see what happens this year. Like, I think the Pistons are like looking forward to that one. Like, I think that Pistons team like really wants that series. So we shall see. Okay. Let's go here. My second takeaway is The Hornets and Musa Diabate, mostly. Ryan Kalkbrenner, too, to some extent. And the Celtics with Nimi Keita and Luka Garza and some of the other guys they've had are really making the case to me for taking like a max minimum strategy at center. I think that if I was running a team, the way that I would be looking at the center position right now is if I have a max guy who's like legit thick and is awesome. Like if I had Nikola Jokic or Chet Holmgren or Towns to some extent, he's sort of a center, but not really. Wembanyama like is a great example of this. If I had one of those guys, like a truly elite center, honestly, Rudy Gobert, I think fits into this mold too. If I had a truly elite guy that is worth a max deal or like near a max deal, Bam Adebayo, like another one, great. If I had a guy that is like that, I would love to have him and I'm for it. Otherwise, I don't know that it's worth spending a big amount of money at the center position. And the Celtics and Hornets to me are the two teams that are kind of proving that this year. Cause I just think that you might be able to like makeshift enough minutes at the center position to do this, to like make this work. Right. Like Musa Diabate this year, and to be clear, like you have to be able to identify who the guys are in the league that you can go get for, under $5 or $6 million, right? Or a massive bargain. Like Ivica Zubac is somewhere in the middle of these things, but Ivica Zubac is a near max player who's probably worth like $35 million or $40 million a year, who's getting paid drastically under what he's worth, right? Now, I will say this. When Indiana has to inevitably extend Ivica, I'm not wildly excited about that move. Like, I don't know how well that totally works. But Musa Diabate has been incredible this year. He's been all over the place rebounding. They found a great way to utilize Ryan Kalkbrenner as just like a, shot blocker on the interior, efficient scorer on the interior. The Celtics with Nimi Keita, Keita has been fantastic this year. If you have a big who can just play and drop and is efficient as a scorer and rebounds the basketball and can anchor to his position, I think you can make this work in the NBA. Like, I think that you can do this with like real, like in a way that like really makes it work at the NBA with maxes and mins. You look around the league right now, like some of the guys I'm talking about, like Hartenstein is probably the antithesis to this argument. I will admit that. Like,
unique situation though.
Yeah, unique situation because they were so cheap and they were able to go pretty big on him despite having all of their money. I think maybe the better way to put this is like, I would try to get a max center for sure. He'd be a priority for me. But if I don't have a max center, I'm not really prioritizing the center position at a super high level. And to be honest with you, like, I'm assuming Hartenstein like signed somewhere like, it could be like Atlanta or something this summer, right? Maybe he stays in Oklahoma City on like a bargain deal. Who knows? But if I'm not like super excited to pay him $35 million a year next year. Like, I'm not excited about like the Jakob Poeltl deal in Toronto. I'm not real excited about the Jared Allen deal in Cleveland. I would say that the Miles Turner deal, it's a unique situation in Milwaukee, obviously, with how important it is to have a spacing center with Giannis. But like, I wouldn't say that the Miles Turner deal looks incredible right now. I wouldn't say that there's like a massive gulf between what Wendell Carter brings you and what Goga Batadze brings you at under 10 million.
Sam, are like, you excited? Are you excited to pay Jalen Duren $40 million a year?
So this is a good question. And he's one that I've struggled with a lot this year again, because I love the way he started. He was showing like real on ball shot creation stuff that made me think, oh no, like he actually could be one of these max guys
Agreed.
maybe.
Yep.
And he's still just like, what, 22, maybe just turned
Yeah.
20.
Yeah, he's young.
Yeah, like just turned 22. Right. I knew he had a birthday a couple months ago. I think I would come close to being willing to max him because I think he's so young and so productive and such a good fit with like that roster that it just works. But it would come with real worry. He has enough upside though to where I'm like, okay, this is probably a guy. But in terms of like the limited players who just like aren't like Mark Williams, I would not be excited about paying. I'm like trying to think through like some of these other guys, like Alperen Şengün is like a real question to me because of the limitations he brings on defense. But I'm pretty sure that he's just kind of worth it at the end of the day. But Anthony Davis right now is like obviously not seen as a good contract for what his value is. If you have to go up to 50 for somebody at like the 35% max, given what he just got traded for, right? The Utah Jazz this summer with Walker Kessler, like it seems like he wants a massive number.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I might have gone a different way with that at the deadline and saw what I could have potentially gotten as opposed to paying him $25 to $30 million over a massive deal because he's just like a little bit more limited. I think that you can find really good center production at bargain basement numbers. If you need, like Yusuf Nurkic is not on a bargain basement deal, but it was a bargain basement price point that Utah paid for him. And he's been fantastic this year. And again, like Diabate, Keita, the Clippers found this with Zubats originally when they acquired him from the Lakers, right? I just think that you can get makeshift production from this position in the way that you need. And Mateusz Krivas in the draft is like the guy that I really like, right?
Yeah.
Like 7'2", massive, finishes at the rim, awesome rim protector. I kind of think he could come in and be like this year's version of Ryan Kalkbrenner and play pretty quickly in the NBA and be useful. Like Moussa Diabate at some point is going to get a massive deal. If I'm Charlotte, I'm probably trying to do that like this summer so that I can maintain some cost control on Diabate instead of, I'm threatening him with the idea of, yeah, that's fine. We'll just like opt into your money next year and you'll make $2.5 million and you have to figure that out. I think he might not be extension eligible, to be honest. I can't remember, but I would think he would be because he's on the second year of his contract now. If I was them, like I'm trying to get him on like a real solid number here moving forward, basically.
Spotrac doesn't say that he is. I don't know. So,
yeah,
but no, I'm with you. This center market is very, very interesting to me because there is a pretty big gap between these guys that make a ton of money that are probably worth it. And then you see some of these teams, like you said, the teams you have right there. Again, I'll point to Detroit right now. You look at what they pay to the center position, and they probably have the most depth of any team in the league and as good a production as any team in the league that isn't Nikola Jokic or Victor Wembanyama or whatever. Well, that's because Jalen Duren's on a rookie deal right now. When he's no longer on the rookie deal, what is that then going to look like moving forward? And so when you look at the contracts in between those, some of those, it's like, man, is this a guy we like? Is he worth this? How does this work? So I don't disagree with this at all, Sam. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And to your real quick, just to your point of like what you have to give up to acquire, this draft, I think, has a lot of these guys in the late first, early second range. We talked about this recently where teams could go get some of these guys, the Henry Vesars, the Krivises, the Terrace Reed Juniors, etc.
Morez Johnson, maybe.
Morez Johnson Jr. Yeah.
Like, I think that the way I would be looking at the center position is I feel like you can always find an undervalued good big, because here's the other thing too. If you don't have like an established big, agents are probably going to look to send their guy there, like, Keita's agents did with Boston at a certain point, because he was a like free agent and could have signed elsewhere if memory serves at some point. And they were like, no, like let's stay here where he's able to be in a system that works for him, right? I think Diabate like signed an extension with Charlotte a little while ago. Okay, great. Like, he chose to be there. You know what I mean? Because he saw the writing on the wall in terms of the center position. Like, I think that if you don't have an established center, oftentimes bigs, even more than like other positions, like DeAndre Ayton being a great example this past summer where they got him for under 10 million. I think bigs will be willing to go there. So maybe it's more this. If I can't get a max center, I very strongly prefer to find the undervalued asset at center, even more than at other positions, right? Like, you're always trying to find undervalued assets, but I think that I would be even more aggressive on it, to the point where if I couldn't get Zubats, who's underpaid by $20 million a year, or somebody like that, I would be a lot quicker to go to the minimum group of centers, or to draft a center like a Krivas, like a Vesar, like a Merez Johnson, all of those guys, Pat Gungba, whoever, thinking that I can get 4 years of pretty decent production at the center position.
You just turned the center market into the NFL running back market, Sam. Congrats.
Kind of. But but it's a little bit different insofar as like they'll pay for Saquon Barkley, right? But they still won't pay.
They won't pay. They didn't pay Saquon receiver money.
Correct. Exactly right. They will pay him real money. They'll pay Christian McCaffrey real money, but I do think that there is some of that is true. Okay, Bryce, you're up with takeaway number 2.
Yeah, so I often hear people talk about the NBA being a copycat league and everybody plays the same and all of that. And I've been holding on to this one for a little while. I don't think that that's entirely true. I think NBA teams are winning in different ways. And I'm just going to lay this out and then you can disagree. But I took the top 8 teams in net rating and I just looked at a few different things. First thing was, who is their best player? Shea, Cade, Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson. Those guys are all very different archetype of players to me, Sam. Shea and Cade both play with the ball, but their goals when the ball is in their hand is a little bit different. Cade is one of the best passers in the league. Shea might be the best scorer in the league. And I don't have the Nuggets here, but you throw Jokic in here as well. Completely different player. One of these teams is led by Jalen Brunson. One is led by Victor Wembanyama. Inherently, when your best player and the archetypes are this different, the way you play is going to be different. Even roster construction. The Celtics, to your point, have no center money. The Pistons may not have a second star. The Knicks are very top heavy. The Timberwolves don't have a point guard on the roster. Percentage of points that come from 3-pointers. The Celtics are second. The Pistons are 29th. Free throw attempt rate. The Pistons are third. The Celtics are 30th. The Cavaliers are 22nd. Percentage of points from fast break. Again, a lot of these are where the Pistons were high, but third, Celtics 30th. The Thunder 25th. Percentage of points in the paint. The Rockets 5th. The Knicks 26th. Isolation play types. The Thunder are second. The Cavaliers are 25th. Offensive rebound percentage. You have 4 teams in the top 7, and then the best team in the NBA is 30th in offensive rebound percentage. Points off turnovers. Best 2 teams in the league, Thunder and Pistons. But then the Celtics are 19th. The Rockets are 18th. My point is, I know we use that, and in some ways it's true. I think you watch these teams play, and it's not always the case. They play different ways. Their rosters are constructed in different ways. Their star players are different archetypes, and they prioritize different aspects of the game of basketball.
So just to do this very quickly, because people will bring up the idea of college basketball, right? And the idea of what college basketball brings in terms of different styles of play, from like pack line defenses, to hard hedging, to playing zone defense more consistently in some cases, to playing at the level, like there's probably a little bit more differentiation in terms of style of play. So a lot of teams play two bigs. A lot of teams play super small and try and, shoot the lights out of the place, right? They're like they're even say
our pool
75. There's 75 high major teams, right? So like there are two different ideas. So I just did a quick search on KenPom to look at adjusted tempo, right? Maybe I can do this with raw tempo. That might even be a better way to look at it. But I just did it on adjusted tempo because it'd be the easiest thing in the world to me. Fastest team in the country is Alabama at 73.75 or 73.7. The slowest team among high major teams is West Virginia at 62.3. So about 11 possessions per game difference, right? In a 40-minute game. In the NBA, fastest team is Miami at 104. Slowest team is Boston at 95. So like 9 possessions in a 48-point game. So like closer in terms of tempo, but not drastically closer. You know what it's not like there's like a massive difference. Boston plays like a wildly slow brand of basketball, and you can see that in watching Illinois play, right? Like Illinois has taken a lot of the principles of Boston's offense and integrated them to get Keaton Wagler loose for mismatches and to play 5 out, right? I think we're starting to see college teams go up to try and steal some NBA stuff, and NBA teams drop down to try and steal some college stuff a little bit more consistently. And I think that we are starting to see like a little bit more differentiation kind of across the board in terms of these things, right? I agree with you. Like, I think that you probably don't see quite the thing that drives people crazy is like the number of 3-pointers that get taken, right? Like 3-point rate, for instance, like you said, Golden State takes over half their shots from 3. The Rockets take about a third of their shots from 3, right? Like that is basically where we're at in terms of 3-point numbers. Looking through like the KenPom data again, just to find, 3-point attempt rate. There are currently 17 out of 360 odd teams that are taking over half of their shots from 3. There are currently, let's see here, about 40 teams that are taking under a third of their shots from 3. So I think that there is like a bit of a difference in terms of 3-point attempt rate from college to the NBA, where like there are a lot of teams that take a ton of 3s. There are a lot of teams that take minimal number of 3s in college, right? You kind of expect that. Like the level of difference between how good college players are and how good NBA players are, like everybody can shoot 3s in the NBA, essentially. So you would expect that is important in that there would be some, similarity in terms of how teams attack, given that 3-point percentage is valuable, but like, it's not that, like, it's a pretty drastic difference now. Like 1/3 of your shots being from 3 versus over half of your shots being from 3. And then finally, like just looking at offensive rebounding rate, because I think that's really been a bellwether a lot of the time, like for how teams are attacking, right? You look at college basketball, offensive rebounding rates. There are currently 2 teams in the country, I'll be interested to see if you can name them, who are grabbing at least 40% of their misses. In the NBA, there is only one team that is grabbing 36% of their misses, and then nobody else is grabbing 32% of their misses. Can you name the 2 college teams that are just like obliterating the offensive glass right now?
The only one that immediately came to mind was Florida.
Yeah, Florida is second in offensive rebounding rate this year at 43%. Tennessee is at 45% right now. Like they just throw bodies at it. They throw body after body after body at it, which is pretty real. Houston does something similar where they throw a ton of bodies at it. But the thing is that, like, in the NBA, you have to have some semblance of transition defense or you are dead. There are teams, like I know in the NBA, and good friend of the program here, Fred Katz, has written about this, that are implementing like tagging up, which is the idea of like crashing inward, behind a guy and like trying to get tip outs for offensive rebounds. And the idea being that like you're essentially playing one-on-one with your man and stopping them from getting out into transition, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea. And I think that's smart, but at the end of the day, there's always just going to be a big delta. I know that people love when I say that word, differentiation in terms of what teams can do offensive rebounding in college, where there's just a drastic size difference across the board between certain teams and other teams. And in the NBA, where everybody's tall, like that's just the reality. Everybody's tall. And yet we do still see like a team like Oklahoma City that basically only crashes Hart. Like Hartenstein's really the only guy that I would say that consistently is really hitting the offensive glass. Chet will do it sometimes if he's down there or if he's playing the 5. Like, other than that, they're just like really going like one possession and out for the most part. So I agree. Like, I think that we have seen real differentiation this year in how teams have attacked. It's not quite college basketball, which is what it often gets compared to. I get that. And I get that that's why some people like college basketball, that they like the differentiation in scheme. They like the differentiation in the way that teams go about it. I understand that across the board. But I think that NBA teams are quickly differentiating in fun, interesting ways based on the personnel that they have.
I agree.
Okay, Bryce, I want you to do your next one, and then I want to close on the draft stuff.
Okay, so my final one was just, I think the awards races are heating up, and I'm very excited to see how things play out down the stretch. Even MVP is all of a sudden gotten a little bit more interesting, where Jokic could potentially stay as a candidate. We'll see. And then SGA missing some games and the Thunder not just completely running away with the Western Conference. I realize they're still going to win the Western Conference. They still have a multi-game lead. Like, I get it. But again, compared to where it was at one point, that may be a little bit more interesting. And I also think just like the rest of the MVP race, all NBA, all of that's always going to be good. DPOY, same thing. I mentioned earlier, the Thunder, at least for me, like you already weren't having Chet as the DPOY. Victor, it looks like, could be on track to play enough games, but I don't think the Thunder's defensive rating and all of that is so good that it just completely eliminates other people. You have a few other names that have gotten in there. Ultimately, if Victor plays enough games, it's probably not going to be that. But I think after that, it will be a fun conversation. I think Coach of the Year is fascinating because most people I hear just give it to Mazzulla and don't even mention JB Bickerstaff, which that is one thing that drives me a little bit crazy. Most improved player has a plethora of names across the board. Like, it's ridiculous, the names there. And then finally, and not to throw shade at 6 Man of the Year or clutch player, Rookie of the Year is going to be awesome, right? Like, we came into the year, I thought Cooper Flagg was going to win it unanimously. That was one of my, hot preseason predictions. Con Knipple just stole it and, ran with it. And now Cooper's putting up all sorts of games while Con is a impact player on a team that might end up in the playoffs from the play-in. So I just think a lot of these things are playing out in a way that they're going to be very fun and very exciting to talk about during the final, third of the season that we have here.
So just like quick games played check on some of these guys.
Yeah.
So Shea has missed 6 games. Jokic has missed 16 at this point. So he can only miss 2 more.
Yep.
Or he can only miss 1 more. Rather.
1 more.
I'm sorry.
2 and yep.
Yeah. Victor Wembanyama has only missed 14 so far. So I'm just telling you, like, if they, if he is able to stay healthy for these last, 27 games and only miss 3 games, like, he's winning Defensive Player of the Year. Like, that's happening.
Yes. Yep.
Right. Like, if he plays 65 games, I think that they're giving him Defensive Player of the Year. Honestly, like, I would love to hear your take on Wemby defensively and whether or not we think he should win it. I believe that the answer is yes, personally. They have a 109 defensive rating when he's on the court. He's been pretty monstrous, and then a 115 defensive rating when he's been off the court. He just completely changes the trajectory of the game entirely across the board. I think he probably should win it, but just looking at the FanDuel odds, right? So shout out FanDuel. Shea is minus 220 for MVP, Jokic plus 310, and then Cade and Luka are 20-1. For Defensive Player of the Year, Wemby is minus 320. Chet is plus 320. Rudy is 20-1. Scotty Barnes is 30-1. I do think those are the 4, it feels like right now.
I will homer say Asar Thompson should at least be mentioned.
He's 5th in the awards race as well. I think he's more on defense than he is Defensive Player of the Year.
I don't think he can win DPOY. The way he could get there is if somehow Detroit would overtake Oklahoma City with the best defensive rating in the NBA. Like, they're never going to fully get that narrative this season, but if they just have a crazy run post All-Star break, like, that would be the way he'd get in the I think if Wemby was out and they end up first in defensive rating, I think Asar would at least get a little bit of a conversation. He's not winning it over Wembanyama, though.
Just for quick, like, notes here, like, Wemby at minus 320 for Defensive Player of the Year when he only has 3 games left that he can miss feels like not great odds. I actually quite like Rudy and Scotty if you're a gambling type at 20 and 30-1 right now. I don't think, like, it's definitely Chet's if Wemby ends up missing those games. That just doesn't feel right to me right now that he's that big of a favorite comparatively. You're basically betting on, though, Wemby missing 3 games the rest of the year. Rookie of the Year, Cooper Flagg is minus 750. Con Knipple is 5-1. I think that Cooper is probably going to win. If you made me bet, I think it's fairly likely that Cooper wins. Knipple is, it's hard because I did rookie rankings for next week, and I'll spoil it for you guys if they're listening here. I have Cooper at number 1 right now in the rookie rankings, and I do rookie rankings full season. And I didn't expect that. I was like a little bit skeptical that I would get there, but I do think Cooper at 1 feels right based off of the run that he's on. He's been insane recently. Over his last 8 games, Cooper Flagg is averaging 27, 7, and 4 assists per game. Like, people can, say if Con got 20 shots per game, it would be a different race. I actually don't know if, like, he's capable of creating 20 shots per game that are as efficient as the ones that he gets in the same way that Cooper is, because Cooper is just so much more capable of getting downhill and scoring. There have been 4 players since 1985 before Cooper Flagg to have an 8-game stretch that was 27, 7, and 4, basically. Do you know who those 4 players were as rookies since 1985?
Rookies since 1985.
To have an 8-game stretch of 27, 7, and 4, basically.
So, 85. I'm trying to think. I always get this confused with Jordan. Did he get hurt his rookie year or the second year?
So Jordan, it might be 80. So yeah, Jordan is an answer to this.
Is?
Yes.
Yeah, it was his second year he got hurt. Okay, so Jordan, David Robinson.
David Robinson is not an answer.
Duncan?
Duncan is not an answer.
LeBron.
LeBron is not an answer. He didn't get their scoring. It's 1980. It's not 1985 for what it's worth. And this is important for one of the guys.
What were the points?
27.
Oh, okay. Hakeem?
No. Before Hakeem and Jordan. Like right before.
James Worthy, Dominique Wilkins?
Larry Bird is that one.
Oh, okay.
And then the recent one is Blake Griffin. I don't know if you were going to get all the way to Blake. But Blake was like unbelievable as a rookie. So like Bird, Jordan, Blake Griffin, and then Cooper Flagg. Like that's pretty good company for Coop. And oh, by the way, those guys did it when they were like 21. Yeah. Coop like just turned 19 in December. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yep.
Coop is a stud. And like, if you want to make the case the con has been better to this point, I will hear that out for sure. I do think that Coop's trajectory says he's probably more likely to end up winning it. And you mentioned coach of the year. I mean, JB is currently the betting favorite for what it's worth at -135. Jordan Ott is second, Missoula third, Mitch Johnson fourth, Charles Lee has crept up to fifth, David Adelman sixth, Darko seventh. They're the only guys under 30-1 or better. I think it's going to be one of Bickerstaff, Ott, Missoula, or Charles Lee if you made me bet. I think Mitch Johnson's done a great job. I just don't think that people are going to give it to Mitch, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I think they're going to be a lot of fun to discuss. I'm excited.
Okay. Last point here that I want to bring up. We haven't talked NBA draft on the main show in a while, and I wanted to do that. The 2026 NBA draft is truly like special, Bryce. And we probably haven't mentioned that enough on this show. There are 3 legit like tier 1 talents. I've never had that before in a class. All of Darren Peterson, AJ DeBansa, and Cam Boozer are going to be tier 1 guys for me. I think there's a chance I end up with Caleb Wilson as a tier 1 guy. He's been unbelievable recently. We talked about it on the Substack NBA draft show recently that like every time that Caleb has stepped on the court with one of those 3 guys above him, and he's played all 3 of them this year, AJ in a preseason game, Caleb was the better player on that given day. I love what we saw from Caleb Wilson this season. He is now fractured his left hand. We'll see how long that holds him out. There's also Kingston Flemings and Keaton Wagler. Kingston Flemings is an explosive, absolute like savage guard who just gets a paint touch at will, has really improved in ball screens, has been fantastic. And then Keaton Wagler, all he's done since taking over as the lead guard at Illinois on December 1st, averaging like 25 and 5 and dominating games, basically. He dropped 46 on the road at Purdue. He dropped, he's been fantastic on the road, basically like everywhere he's been at this point. Except at Michigan State where he was like really bad this past weekend, but at Nebraska dropped 28, 5 and 5. That game at Purdue was ridiculous. At Iowa dropped 19, 5 and 4. At Ohio State 23, 2 and 5. Everywhere he has been since he's taken over outside of this Michigan State game where it was really rough, he's just been a monster on the road as a lead guard, being asked to do everything for his team every single time he touches the ball. I'll talk a little bit about the Illinois offense in a second and why I have Keaton at like as a clear 6th guy right now. But then last night, 2 nights ago, he goes and drops 34 and 7 against Wisconsin and was just like totally ridiculous in that game too. It was the whole reason that they were in it. Then you look at Nate Ament, you look at Michael Brown, who dropped 46 earlier this week. You look at Jaden Quaintance, who is a monster defensive prospect. You look at what Braden Burries has done after his first 5 games of the season. I still buy into Koa Pete at a real level. Have you seen like Bennett Sturts recently? Like you and I had some minor questions about Sturts entering the year. Sturts is like completely figured out the Big Ten. It took 5 or 6 games, but if you look at his numbers since Christmas, it's obscene. He's averaging 24 points, 5 assists versus 2.3 turnovers, shooting 53, 39, 86. Like has completely dominated the Big Ten. Like I see people that don't have him on like their first team all Big Ten. I'm just like, what are you guys doing? What are you watching? Like he's completely taken over the league. And I know that team is like a little bit messier than what people want, but like up until that weird loss at Maryland, what was that? I think it was last night. Like they'd won, I think 6 or 7 straight Big Ten games too. So this draft is awesome, man. Like you can go all the way down to 10 or so and be really excited about what you get.
No, I'm with you. The guys at the top are really good. I have slowly really come around on the depth. I sometimes get mad whenever people call things, it's just a loaded draft and they act like that means all the way through the first round. And that's not always the case. For me, I have a little bit of trouble in the 9 to like the back end of the lottery is always a little bit of a trouble for me. And some of that is just players there that I don't have a great feel for yet. We haven't seen a much of Quaintance because of the injury. I still don't know what I think about Koa Pete. Excuse me. Yaxel's a little bit older. Michael Brown had an explosive game the other night, but there were some things before that. So anyway, like but even as you get into the middle portions, you mentioned, Bennett Sturts, Gongba, Chris Sanak is playing better. I like some of the wings at the end of the first round. Dalen Swain, Kareem Lopez, Jefferson, Amari Allen, Juke Harris. Those guys are like not even guaranteed first round picks right now. And, Yesufu there at Baylor all of a sudden had a big night the other night against, Debansa. So, and not to mention, we've talked about the big men that we think are available in that range as well. So it's truly special at the top. I agree. And especially because Caleb Milson has made that even better. Keaton Wagler, Kingston Flemings has made that even better. Nate Ament figuring it out. Acuff, I like Acuff. I know we'll have to have a conversation about that at some point. But
honestly, I've come around. It was funny. I was talking to a GM and they were like, yeah, the way I've started thinking about Acuff is like stronger Keontae George. And that actually like kind of clocked for me a little bit and made in my head, it helped me understand like how this could work for Acuff. You know what I mean?
Sam, it's the first line of my notes, little bit of Keontae George in his game with some question marks. And that was going back to earlier in the year. And he's stronger, right? Like he's bigger and stronger. So I like it. I'm excited. We'll see what ends up happening a few months from now in terms of guys stay in, guys don't, all of that. But right now, I love my top 8. I feel pretty good about my top 8. There's a little bit, it's not that I don't like guys in my next 6 or 7. It's just, I'm still trying to figure things out. And then the depth through the middle portion and into the end of the first round right now, I feel very comfortable having to name 30 guys as first round picks. And that's not always the case. You know what I mean? And again, they're not all going to stay in, so it's going to change, but that's not always the case. Feeling pretty good about, hey, you know what? I don't even have to name Richie Saunders and I can still name 30 guys as first round picks. And I think Richie Saunders would be a very reasonable end of the first round draft pick.
I kind of like Richie too, to be honest. Couple of questions here on the draft. Talk about it, Sam. How would you approach Peterson's load management if you had the number 1 pick? Peterson, like, this isn't like load management for Darren Peterson. Like, if Darren Peterson wanted to shut this down, Like he could have shut this down a month ago. He could have shut it down 2 months ago after the hamstring injury. It's a pretty good sign that he's still trying to play. Think about like Jalen Johnson. Like think about some of these guys that just kind of decided like, screw this, I'm not doing college basketball. The fact that Darren Peterson like hasn't done that kind of says a lot. Yeah, would I like to see him play more? I would. But like the hamstring injury was real. The cramping stuff was like pretty real. He got sick. Like I would love to see him play. Don't get me wrong. And would I have loved to have seen him, just like fight through the flu or whatever? I guess, but I don't know how sick he is. It's whatever, but like it's very clear he is sick. Yeah, like there's like no load management happening. I think people are like trying to, and look, I get we live in like a conspiracy culture now, and I get it, but like when I talk to teams, like Darren is still the name I get most often at number one, like pretty clearly. So, yeah, I don't know. It's very, very strange. Very strange to me that people do this. Does a guy like Merez Johnson get a huge bag to stay in school? This is what Bryce was alluding to at the end. I would imagine Merez Johnson's going to have like $3 million on the table to stay at Michigan, like something crazy like that. And if he wants to, great. I'm all for it. I love him getting paid. I love him getting the bag. Guys like Braylon Mullins, even like Wagler, like Illinois is going to offer a crazy amount of money and just be like, hey, look, like you're not super strong yet. Let's take a year and get way stronger and like be ready to go to the NBA and maybe go number one overall in 2027. Right. I don't know that I would do that if I was Keaton, but like that conversation will be broached, I would bet. Merez, Tyler Tanner's another one, given that he's like 170 pounds, 165 pounds, whatever he is. Vanderbilt's going to offer him crazy money. Everyone knows Texas Tech has like a crazy amount of money to offer Christian Anderson, for instance.
Yep, that was the
like
name that was popping out. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. That's real, I think. So the money is going to be there. Like the money is absolutely going to be there, and we will be intrigued to see who stays and who goes. I think there's a chance that some of these guys will just decide to do it.
Here's what I will say is what makes me feel a little better is I have another group of guys that I'm okay if they end up moving into some of those spots, right? That are going to come out because they're out of eligibility in the Terrace Reed Juniors, Alex Caravan. Crevis still has another. Is Crevis out?
Crevis has another year.
Crevis has another year. I've come
Richie
around,
Saunders, like, Alex Caravan,
Emmanuel Sharp is a guy I love. Braden Smith, like there are Ruben Chinyelu. I don't know that he's like all the way to a first round pick, but there are other.
He has
names.
Another year too, for what it's worth.
True.
But
yeah. Like there's not a ton, but there are some names here that are like fringe there that when some of these names inevitably fall out, I'm going to be okay with the names that I put in there. It's just going to make my second round not be very enticing, which is probably what's going to be the truth moving forward because so many of these guys will go back and make money.
Can I let loose just like a little bit of a secret?
Sure.
To the like literally like thousands upon thousands of people that will listen to the show, so it's no longer a secret. I might have Ruben Chinyelu in the first round.
Okay.
He is so good on defense, Bryce.
Well,
and he works so hard and he rebounds the hell out of the basketball. Like that dude's worst case scenario is backup center in the NBA, I think. And like you just look at like the guys we talked about earlier in that like center discussion that we had. He moves, he's strong, he rebounds the hell out of the basketball. He's not like a total zero on offense. There's just a lot there. There is a lot there.
I'm cool with it. Like based on where I have him right now, if he stayed in and the amount of people I think will drop out, he's going to be in range.
Yeah. Like he is the player that has changed my mind more than just about anybody that I've seen this year. He's really good. Like he's really, really good. Same with Crevis. Crevis is really good. Both of those two guys, like when I watch them, I'm just like, oh no, these guys are like real NBA caliber defenders who rebound the basketball and who have NBA size and kind of do everything. Like Vesar sometimes is like a little bit softer than what you want in terms of contact. Merez is just like a little bit undersized, right? Mara is just not quite as good as these guys in my opinion. But yeah, I think that like Chinyelu and Krivas are the two that I watch and I'm like, this works for me. This really works.
For sure.
Okay. If you want more NBA draft content, go over to the Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com. We will be back there next Tuesday breaking down NBA draft prospects. At some point, we're just going to have to talk about all the bigs. Like, I know that we sort of did that recently, but just talk about all of them because they're all so fun and so interesting. I am so intrigued by this big man class at that level. Go to gametheorysamv.substack.com, gametheorysamv.substack.com. You will get player breakdowns, in-depth everything that you need there. Go subscribe, really go support the show and help out. Go over to The Athletic, subscribe there. Bryce, we got to get you out of here. Where do you want to tell people to go?
At Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. If your favorite team plays the Pistons, I will have notes on them as well. Sam just mentioned the Game Theory Substack, obviously right here, Game Theory Podcast. And Sam, got a special surprise for you on Sunday's live recording post All-Star game. I'm excited for your reaction.
So the plan for Saturday, or Sunday rather, I'm sorry. And I can tell you where we're going with the next two shows because we have those two planned out because I'm moving next week and it's going to get haywire in a hurry. On Thursday or on Sunday, we are doing a bit of All-Star. We'll talk a little bit about All-Star and we'll go live after the game. Then we're going to counter program and we are going to do a draft where we're coming up with like a point system and we're coming up with some other stuff where like we'll do a bet of some sort where our plan is the players currently averaging under like X number of points on tanking teams who are going to just like absolutely go bonkers at the end of the year. So like Bryce Sensabaugh, probably going to be the number 1 overall pick. Who is the player essentially most likely on a tanking team to go for 50 points or 40 points or 30 points in a game that is currently like not starting on that team, essentially? Like who blows up in March and April and people get excited about them after all this? So we're doing that draft. I'll figure out a catchier name for it at some point. The tank commander draft or something like that is what this will be. Then on Thursday, Bryce, we're going to do contender rankings. So essentially, like you come to the table with your top 10, I'll come to the table with my top 10. We'll ask Andrew to give his top 10 and kind of go from there and explain why we believe in certain teams, why teams are ranked in certain places. So that's the plan for the next 2 episodes. We might end up, just for people to be aware, we might end up recording the Thursday one a little bit early just because I might be still in the process of moving for the Friday show. So that's the plan. That's where we're at. Bryce, appreciate you as always. We will be back on Sunday post All-Star. Until next time, we'll talk soon.